Hi there and welcome to Module 2. So I hope Module 1 went all right, and I just want to take a moment to remind anyone, remember that if at any point you have questions or you need help with one of the worksheets or anything, feel free to ask me a question. That's what I'm here for. There's that general discussion board that's available on Blackboard, and you'll see that's broken down by module. If you post a question there, it automatically sends me an email, and I will get on there and answer whatever questions that you have. So, all right, so let's talk a moment about what we're going to be doing here in Module 2. In Module 2, what we're going to focus on is describing the relationship between two different variables. And so what I mean by variables are just basically two different things that may interact with one another. So, for example, if a person eats more fast food, does their cholesterol go up? If it's really sunny outside one day, will someone's mood be better? We're just going to try to see if two things relate to one another. And it ends up that figuring out if two things are really related, and by related, I mean is one thing causing another one to happen, is a very hard thing for us as humans to figure out. And the reason for this is we rely heavily on visual relationships. So if I make a plot and it looks like two things exhibit the same pattern, naturally my intuition is to say, hey, something must be happening between these two things. Maybe one of them's causing the other one to happen. But that's not always the case. And what you're going to find out in this module is you can see lots and lots of different visual patterns when we plot data, but that doesn't necessarily mean that one thing is causing the other one to happen. And I think this is one of the biggest mistakes that people make when they think about how two things may or may not interact with one another. And so we're going to spend this whole module talking about that, and we're going to say, okay, well, what does it mean for two things to have a visual relationship to one another? And how can we actually say that one thing causes the other one? And what you're going to find out is in order to make a claim like that, we have to perform what's called an experiment, and we have to be very careful about how we perform that experiment if we're going to see that one thing causes another one to happen. So for example, maybe there's a researcher out there that wants to know if maybe the more coffee somebody drinks a day, is that going to cause them to have some kind of outcome. So maybe it will cause their stress levels to increase, or maybe it will reduce their risk of cancer. Can drinking coffee actually cause any of these things to happen? And if you're going to say something like that, you have to perform a well thought out experiment. And so again, our whole idea for this module this week is going to be looking at the ways that two different variables can interact with one another. And then based on how we collected data on those two variables, what can we actually say about those two and their relationship? And again, I think this module is incredibly important because this is something that you see all the time in the news. So for example, when you open up the notes today, the very first thing you're going to see is a news article. And hopefully you'll realize that you see stuff like this all the time. You'll see claims that one thing causes another one to happen. And the news will make these claims, but then not tell you how was the data actually collected. And so it's your job as the consumer of this, information to step back and say, hey, did they collect this data properly so they can actually make this claim, yes or no? And if they didn't, or they don't give you the information to realize that just because we see a visual relationship doesn't mean that one thing is causing the other one. Also, you're going to see in the notes and in the worksheets today, there's going to be some different plots. One of them deals with eating organic food and whether or not that causes autism. And another one you're going to look at is going to look at liberal abortion laws and whether or not that affects the number of abortions in a country. These were both plots that I pulled off of social media, so you may have seen them before, whether it be on Twitter or on Facebook. And a lot of times what people will do is they will post these plots and they'll say, hey, here's a graph. This is proof that there's some kind of causation between these things. And one of the big take-homes I'd like you to get from this course is just because somebody shows me a plot or a picture, that is not enough proof to say that one thing causes the other one. You need much more information than just that. So keep that in mind as you work through this module's work. And again, I can't iterate this enough. If at any point that you have questions or you need help, please go to that general discussion board. I will be on there to help you. And I hope that you all have a wonderful day.